Welcome back for another episode of Talking Grassroots, a podcast talking all things local footy and local sports. I'm your host, Ricky Ettridge, and with me back again, Ricky Logan. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. I've got over last week's disappointment and, just enjoying some quality NFL playoffs at the moment. So.
That's good, mate. That's good. So this week we're going to touch on the best teams across Victoria in 2023. So the Herald Sun has done their own little rankings. So they've separated it into the top 75 Melbourne clubs, which would have been nice if they just did metro clubs, because then they've also got a top 50 country clubs. So don't quite understand how they've managed to work this, but they should have just sort of been in the metro and country. So we'll touch on that. We're also going to touch on the longest winning streaks as they currently stand, and unfortunately the longest losing streaks. So which one do you want to get into first, mate?
Let's go the top 75 metro clubs to begin with, I reckon.
All right, mate. So we'll get on to that. So we'll probably just work our way back from 10 down to 1. So in 10th spot is Diggers Rest out in the Riddle District. So they had a record of 17-1 for 2023. They were the minor premiers. The Premier bounced back from grand final defeat in 2022 to be dominant team all season, storming to the premiership with a 43-point win over Woodend. Completed the seniors reserves flag double, losing just one game in each grade. That's a hell of a stat.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. But I do want to point out in this list, it's actually got a Readers top 100 as well.
Well, have you got that side of things up?
If you look at the top of there, it's got, so they rank 63rd in the Readers top 100.
How about you keep that one up and I'll read out the rest of them. You give us where the see, that's a big gap in between 10 to 63.
I think you got to keep in mind with Raiders, they're going to be pretty biased towards leagues that they support. So, probably the more popular leagues are going to have teams ranked a bit higher.
Well, the other good thing on the Herald Sun is they've actually got an overrated, underrated, and agree by the viewers. So this probably also has how they worked out the your top 100. So on Diggers Rest, 66% of people think they're overrated, 12% of people feel like they're underrated, and 22% agree. In ninth were the out of East Premier Division of Wandon. The Bulldogs went 17-3, winning the premiership. The Bulldogs seemed to grow in strength as the season progressed, and their 63-point win over Narry Warren in the grand final left no one in doubt as to who the best team was. Cody Hurst, Paddy Brzee, and Clinton Johnson had stellar seasons. So Wandon from the Outer East, Nines pretty to finish premiers in the Premier Division and Outer East is pretty good. But again, this is another one that Outer East is the country league. I'm not too sure why they've got these in for this. But so what's your vote on that one, or the viewers' choice?
58 in the top 100 for the Readers there. They're ranked, yes. Which, like I said, there's going to be a pretty big difference between some of these teams. But Outer East has been always known as dominated by Narry and Cranny. So for them to knock off Narry by a decent, over 10-goal margin is pretty big.
It's probably good for Outer East too to have a sort of like an original club winning premierships. So 60% of people feel like they're overrated, 17% are underrated, and 23% agree. Coming in 8th is Werribee Districts, the Western Region Division 1, with a record of 19 wins and 1 draw. So they didn't lose this game all season. They finished minor premiers and then with the premiership. There was only one blemish on district season as they're clearly the best side in the West. Led by lots of homegrown talent, Chris Gillam's side went one step better in 2023. So I'm not too sure if they've just got the blemish as a draw or they've just got it around the wrong way. So what's the Raiders top 100 on that, mate?
Yeah, they got them at 42. Big difference. But Werribee, again, is probably not quite Metro, is it really? But
I'll give it to them because Western Region is a metropolitan league, so I'll give them that.
yeah, but the good thing here is lots of homegrown talent. That's probably good to hear for a team like that out that way.
Pretty sure Werribee districts have only crossed from the VAFA only a handful of years ago too. I'm fairly sure. So 51% of people feel like they were overrated, 22% underrated, and 27% agree. Now moving into seventh, and I can actually see here what the people have rated them. So rated seventh is the Mornington Peninsula Division 1 Minor Premiers and Premiers Dramana Football Netball Club. With boom recruit Jake Arts making a massive impact, the Tigers roared off with the premiership, blitzing respected rivals Frankston YCW by 54 points in the grand final and dropping only one game all season. And I actually know someone that was involved at Dramana, so I was chatting to them throughout the season every time I sort of crossed paths with him, and he was very bullish about their season and how they were going, but he was saying that they were getting a little bit concerned, especially when the Pines brought back in sort of Dane Swan, Aaron Edwards, and those type of players mid-season, but managed to go all the way and the one loss in the season, but still won the flag. So where do the Raiders sit these guys, mate?
Yeah, number one. So I think this one's, between 1 and 7 is not too big a gap compared to some of the others, but I actually went to the granny and watched these guys play against Frankston YCW. My son's one of his teachers plays for Dramana, so it was a pretty happy occasion for them to win that. But if anyone knows Mornington Peninsula knows, Frankston YCW has been one of the massive powerhouses of local footy. I think they won 8 out of 10 flags over a certain period, so they've been a very dominant force. So for Dramana to knock them off was quite the feat, and it was a ripping game of footy with a massive crowd down there at Frankston. I don't know what the grounds call it at the moment.
It's has changed a lot. It was Skybus, and I think it's changed since then. But in the first episode, I spoke to you about what your first memory of watching local footy was. And funnily, Frankston YCW was actually my first memory of watching local footy. So for anyone that lives in that area, Jubilee Park, there's a massive netball complex there. And my sisters used to play netball down there on a Saturday morning. So I'd do my odds kick, get picked up. And when I started playing netball, or when I was just going down there, I'd actually just walk across or sit on the hill and watch Frankston YCW. I'm pretty sure that was actually during that really dominant period they were in. But me having absolutely zero idea about local footy at 10 years old, I just went down, got the record, and I was like, I'm actually watching local footy. So Frankston YCW is actually my first memory of watching local footy. So Dramana, 24% feel like they're overrated, 49% feel like they're underrated, and 27% agree. Now, moving into sixth, from the Southern Division 1, Cheltenham, with a record of 19 wins and 1 loss. They were the minor premiers and then also won the premiership in an absolute enthralling contest. So the Rosellas snapped their 87-year Division 1 premiership drought with a stunning comeback win over Cranbourne. The Eagles had been kryptonite for Cranbourne for Cheltenham in recent years, with its only 3 losses in the past 39 games, all coming against Cranbourne. They were a side worthy of premiership success, having dominated the entire home and away season, which included a stretch of 10 quarters without conceding a goal. So just on that grand final, I actually watched that grand final here, being the fact that I used to play for Cranbourne and was pretty interested in this game. And the funny thing about that game was, now the commentators, I believe, were probably from the league or from the the provider. But I tell you what, if you'd told me that I'd press red for Cheltenham's commentary, I honestly would have believed you, because when Cranbourne dominated for periods of this game, when Cranbourne were on top, the commentators were saying Cheltenham weren't doing this right, they've got to be better, and they were real sort of down in the dumps, and geez, they're going to lose another grand final. Then the comeback came on, and they were blowing the levels off of their commentary equipment. And I was just like, geez, you've sort of got to be a little bit unbiased when you're doing commentary on a grand final. So where did the viewers have them, mate?
Yeah, they got them at 60. And that's, I think, when it comes to, like I said, when you got people involved in different leagues, they're going to rate certain clubs a lot higher. Southern, like we spoke about in our last episode, has always had a little bit of a bad rap as not quite as strong a competition, but it just shows Granny, who were a powerhouse in the Out East, come into the Southern. They've won a flag, and have been their kryptonite to Cheltenham, as it says. But they managed to get over the line, and they had some great recruits the last couple of years that helped them do that.
So just on Cranbourne, right? So Cranbourne were ranked 29th on the list. The Raiders ranked them number 12.
Yeah.
So they've actually ranked the Premiers, who only lost one game for the season, at 60, and rated Cranbourne, who went 15-6, as 12.
Yeah, I don't think when you got to take a nostalgia factor with the Raiders. You know that some people are going to think like, yeah, they've dominated over 10 years, so they'll they should be rated a lot higher. Where they're trying to rate this as like going into this year or at the end of 2023. This is where they rank them. So
you've also got to take into account fan base's desires to make sure their club win. I'm a hardcore supporter of Arsenal, and Arsenal supporters are very much known for getting on to polls and voting fan votes and make sure their people win above anybody else. So in fifth, the Eastern Premier Division Premiers, Rowville Football Club. They went 16-4. Just 20 years ago, competed in Division 4. Now Rowville is the king of the Eastern League following its first top-flight flag in September. Against perennial contender Vermont, no less, the Hawks suffered an upset loss in 2022 Grand Final after taking out the minor premiership, and that was against Noble Park. But weren't to be denied this season, finishing second and often overcoming hurdles of injury and player unavailability in the closest flag race in years. Rowville was written off by a few, but certainly proved the naysayers wrong.
And the Raiders pretty much agree with this one. They've got them ranked at 6, so it's pretty close to how they're ranked there. And Rowville has always been talked about. Eastern League in itself has been always considered probably the top metro local footy league. Yeah. So
I actually remember, I think it was, as I said, they were in Division 4 20 years ago. I remember a couple of years ago they were still down sort of in lower divisions. And then I heard last year that they were pushing for a Premier Division flag. And I was just like, all right, since when did they become good? And Rowville, good ground. The ground's quite a nice ground they got down there. Facilities, we're actually just speaking off air about facilities at Rowville. They're good, but a bit of new ground, new room, change rooms would help. But
coat of paint to the floors would help.
That would help. But Rowville Footy Club do have a little bit of a place in our hearts, being the fact that we are involved with Rowville Cricket Club and they're fairly well aligned. So anyway, 31% agree, 31% say overrated, 37% underrated, and 32% agreed. So
couldn't have it much more even than that.
And then in fourth, and this has actually surprised me that these guys are actually ranked as low as they are. I thought they might have been a little bit higher, even though they're in fourth. Is the VAFA Premier A, so the top division of VAFA, the Collegians. I actually watched this grand final, and I'll get onto that in a minute. But they were the minor premiers. They ended up winning the flag. The best side in the VAFA all season and dominant on grand final day. Collegians beat St. Kevin's by 85 points in the decider, the second largest VAFA Premier Division win in history. So that was obviously back in September. One of the last grand finals we played. Was actually watching it, having a beer out the back here. It actually wasn't the grand final I wanted to watch that day. I actually wanted to watch the Kyabram grand final, but unfortunately, Clutch TV had a bit of a mishap, and the game just didn't come on, which is quite frustrating because I've been watching the Kyabram League grand finals throughout the whole thing. So we put on this grand final, and the first half of Collegians was some of the best football I've ever seen. It was, they just from the get-go blew out St. Kevin's. St. Kevin's, I think, maybe second or third quarter sort of made a bit of a comeback in, and then got distracted, went off and done other things. Flicked it back on, I think, just before three-quarter time, and the margin was already out to about this. And I was just like, holy hell, this has just been a day for St. Kevin's to forget. So that's why I thought they might have been higher. So where do the Raiders have them?
Number 2. So yeah,
that's probably about where I would have had it as well.
Not far off, and if you've got a defender playing for you that's now getting AFL attention after his season, it's probably a good sign for your program and why you rank so high.
I think there was also one of their forwards after that game started to get a little bit of sort of news circulating a little bit that this bloke might be getting a bit. He apparently was quite young. He didn't look young, but apparently he was a bloke that they were saying probably could be and should be looked at as being on an AFL list. So 26% of people have them overrated, 41% underrated, and 33% agree. So now into the bronze medal is the Northern Division 1 Premiers, the Heidelberg Tigers. So they finished with the minor premiership and the premiership, finishing 18-1. The Tigers went back-to-back in style with a 23-point win over Bundoora. It was the 30th senior flag in club history. Heidelberg lost one game and drew another, both against Montmorency, and were even more dominant in reserve grade, going through undefeated. Lockie Wilson claimed the Rosebrook medal. So, one loss in 2 grades, and 6 points dropped in across 2 grades of footy. That's some pretty impressive stats.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. The Raiders had them at number 13, but Northern Division 1, and you're dominating like that, you probably deserve to be up there in that top 5.
So they got 32% overrated, 28% underrated, and 40% agree. Now this one, well, actually, after looking at where the Raiders have got the top team, I'm actually not even going to worry about saying this is probably the biggest gap because it's sort of a bit concerning.
Both 1 and 2 are quite interesting.
And not knowing much about St. Bernard's, I won't speak on the difference, but knowing a bit about the top team, I will speak on how the Raiders have done that. So anyway, St. Bernard's is number 2, VAFA Premier B. They finished undefeated premiers. One of only 2 teams to be unbeaten all season in the VAFA. St. Bernard's will play in the top division next year after winning the minor premiership and grand final in Premier B. The side averaged more than 100 points a game and kept their opposition to under 9 goals a game during the regular season. So where the Raiders have them sit, and then I'm going to give my opinion why I reckon it's so different.
75.
Okay.
So quite a big gap. But tell you what, round 1, you'd be crazy not to book in St. Bernard's versus Collegians there for the welcome to Premier A.
With this one, I think maybe the Raiders. So I'm just probably doing that. So 66% say overrated, 11% underrated, and 23% agree. I think where this issue comes from, with the difference in the Raider top 100 and the Herald Sun one, is because they're Division 2. They're a Division 2 team, so they're probably going, well, hold on a second. This team in Division 1 is going to beat this team. They're not working off the best team in the state. They're working off the best seasons. And then number 1, and this one, I don't quite understand the Raiders, what they got here. So number 1, the Essendon District Premier Division Premiers, Keilor, who went 20 and zip. Undefeated Premier, simply dominant is the only way to put the season of Mick McGuan's side as they stormed to a first premiership since 2019. The Blues were rarely challenged during the year, and it's hard to see who would have beaten them. Now, being the fact that we do work for clubs in the Essendon District, I was in the Premier Division as well. I was privy to their results all season, finding stats. And the couple of finals I watched of them, they were a class above any other team in the state. You'd put them against any other team, and I reckon they're beating them.
Yep. So a clear number 1, and the Raiders have got them at 74.
So on the overrated, so 28% have overrated, 10% underrated, but 62% of people agree. So I'm not really too sure where the Raiders are getting their 74th from, but it says here 62% of people agree, so it's hard to go past that not being probably the correct decision.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I would love to see, they're having the interleague, they're bringing back the interleague, so they're going to have, Southern are playing against whoever, I can't remember which leagues are playing which, but I'd love to see some of these top division
bit of a Champions League?
Yeah, Champions League. I reckon that'd be unreal.
I reckon you could probably, you could probably set that up. So say you get even if you just do, say, your Metro, right? So you, being the fact that Metropolitan all work together, you'd almost set it up as a knockout pre-season tournament. So instead of going off, and I know obviously you probably don't want blokes hitting their straps early in the season, but you can almost run it as like a sort of a pre-season Champions League sort of everyone knockout stage, but when you get knocked out, you then just play a practice match against another team that's for nothing. That would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think it's always been the lifelong question for a lot of local footy fans is which league is the best, and who's producing the best talent, all that sort of stuff. And like I said, Eastern was known as probably one of the top competitions for a long time, but some the VAFA higher divisions and Essendon districts they've started picking up. Outer East, some of those top teams. Champions League would be unreal, I reckon.
The other thing that makes this list hard to really gauge if it's correct or not is, okay, for example, you had Dramana, Division 1, Division 1 premiers of MPNFL. That was 7. Essendon District at Keilor at 1. It could simply be a thing where, like, maybe the MPNFL is actually a harder competition overall than Keilor, which is how Keilor's gone the undefeated route and so dominant. So you've also got to take that into account, that just because you've got undefeated and another team has finished 7th on this and only lost 1 game, they actually might have been a harder competition to be the best team in the state.
Yeah, if you sort of look at it compared to like the way NFL works with divisions and conferences, like there's teams that are playing in very weak divisions. They might be the top of that division, but they then come up against a much far better team from a different cross-conference or division and get blown out the water. And I think, similar things would happen in some of these competitions. If I don't know how a VAFA Premier B team is ranked higher than a team that's won Premier A, just because they won a couple more games. But like you said, obviously it's a much harder division if it's Premier A, so you're playing a lot better sides. That's when you've had premiers from Premier B going up. I'd love to see them take on the premiers from Premier A round 1. That'd be, if you're making the fixture, that's what I'll be booking in for round 1 for sure.
So then moving into the country, so before I do that, just want to quick shout out to Mitcham, who finished 16th in that top ranking in the Raider vote of 18, the premiers in Division 1 Eastern. Unfortunately, they won't go up this year though, with the restructure of Eastern, meaning that premiers in Division 1 don't go up. But shout out to Mitcham. So we'll now move into the country top 50. So we'll run the top 10 here. So in 10th from the Central Murray League is Kerrang. The Blues lost just 1 game for the entire season. The second semi-final to Barronard, they won a grand final by a thriller by 10 points. So where they got him in the Raiders, mate?
29 there, Kerrang. Lost 1 game. I don't know a lot about these country footy leagues, so I probably can't really comment. But 29th and 10 that's not too bad. Overrated 50%, underrated 26%, agreed 24%. It's pretty underrated and agreed is probably 50% reckon they're overrated. So. They're probably a little bit high.
Yeah, it's but again, I'll tell you what's really disappointing about this list. It doesn't have the win-loss record for these teams, which makes it hard to really get a gauge on how good their season actually was. Then moving into number 9 from the Ballerine League, the Torquay Tigers. The Tigers returned to the top after 2 straight grand final losses. The dominant team all year lost 1 game to win their first premiership since 2017. Lucas Anderson kicked 86 goals for a season. Now, that's one hell of a haul.
Yeah, that's not a bad haul. Readers had him ranked 42. overrated 50%, underrated 28, agreed 21. So it's again probably ranked a little bit higher than what they should be.
Yeah, so then moving on to number 8, Ararat and the Wimmera. So they were the premiers. I think we can almost guarantee that every team in this top 10 is going to be a premier. Finished the home and away season undefeated before dropping the first giant to the Southern Malay Giants. The Rats, what a name. Featured former AFL defender Tom Williamson this season. So I'll tell you what, you'd go undefeated and drop the first final. You'd be starting to get a little bit worried right there.
Yeah, sounds familiar. Yeah, you'd be a little bit shaky, but to bounce back and capture the flag is a great effort. The Readers had them ranked 49th, so they've got them overrated 64%, which probably rated a little bit higher than what most people would assume. Again, country, there's so many different leagues that it would be hard to judge like which league's better than where and stuff, and the difference in between some of these leagues.
Yeah, it's also the towns in those leagues that make the big difference. So then moving into number 7 in the Hampton League, South Warrnambool. So obviously premiers. The Roosters ended Corriett's dominance in the Hampton League, bringing the trophy back to Warrnambool for the first time since 2013. The team lost 3 games and dominated their rivals North Warrnambool in the finals, beating them twice, including the grand final. So 10 years between drinks for them. Losing 3 games, though, there's quite a few games to lose when you're hitting these lists that we've seen.
Yeah. The Raiders had them ranked 13th, so it's pretty,
That's probably, I think, so far, it's probably the most even one we've had so far.
Yeah, so it's, they're probably the Hampton League is probably rated a bit higher than a couple of those other leagues that have been mentioned earlier. I'll tell you what, you'd be pissed off you lived on the north side of Warrnambool, wouldn't you? Getting bloody, you'd hate them.
Oh, you would. But I'll tell you what, I reckon it might be something that we actually might even put out there during the season and try and find sort of the biggest like crosstown rivalries or rivalries in country and local and metro footy. I reckon there'd be an absolute few that are just, there'd be the people that, all right, this club's coming to town, let's make sure we get there. Other games, we won't get there. But when this club's coming, we've got to be there to watch. Like, Cranbourne and Narry back in the day probably would have been one of those ones where, I'll go watch Cranbourne every now and then. They're playing now. Got to be there for that. Moving to number 6 from the Bendigo League is Golden Square. They obviously finished premiers as well. Didn't drop a game after round 4 this season as the Bulldogs stormed to a first premiership in 10 years. Remarkably, they've since parted ways with their premiership mentor. I'm curious to know if that was sort of a mutual agreement or they thought they could do better.
Yeah, interesting one without any context to it. There hasn't been too many coaches. I think Carlton fired a coach after he won a flag one year. So who knows? Maybe it was a mutual thing. He's moved on after being at the helm for a while and winning a flag, and there's nothing else really to achieve once you've won the flag. And the Raiders had them 27th. Pretty even. Overrated 37, underrated 19, agree 44. So yeah, most people pretty content with where they're situated.
So just on the coach being out, so there's an article from October 23. So Golden Square Premiership coach this was also written by David Johnston. Golden Square Premiership coach Kristen Carter is deeply saddened by the club's brutal call to dump him less than a month since winning the Bendigo League flag. He has been replaced by club's reserves coach Brad Eaton, while his grand final coaching advisory Sandhurst's Bryce Cunroe hopes all will go. He hopes he will coach again. Carter led Golden Square to its first flag in a decade. I'm deeply saddened to be sacked by the club after securing the senior premiership this year, he said. I'm especially disappointed with the fact the club were unable to give me any feedback on why this decision was made. In saying that, I respect the club's decision and wish them all the best in the future. So, bit strange. I thought it was actually pretty good. Not a bad response, though. He sort of sounded like he was about to give him a bit of a swipe, and then just sort of expressed his displeasure, but then sort of brought it back and respectful. Won't speak on that because obviously have no inside knowledge on why. There might have been a great reason why Golden Square did that. But anyway, moving on to number 5 from the Geelong League, Leopold. So they were premiers. Geez, wouldn't mind this as a coach. Led by ex-AFL player Gary Hocking, Leopold stormed home from 4th to win the premiership. The team won 4 matches in the finals, including a 50-point thumping over South Barwon in the decider. Now, before you get into the reader vote, so these got in 5th. They finished 4th. So that means they've obviously dropped a few games during the season. I'm starting to how do they finish higher than maybe clubs that have gone undefeated?
Yeah, it's like again, probably Geelong League is probably rated a bit tougher than some of those other leagues. The Raiders had them at number 2, so it's not far off. Raiders having them at 2 compared to. If
the Raiders have got them at 2, it's either a strong supporter base trying to bump them up, or. Well, I'm pretty sure Geelong is renowned for being one of, if not the best league in Victoria at the moment. So they're obviously looking at that to be, if you win a premiership in Geelong, it doesn't matter how rough your season's been, you're probably still a top 3 team in the state.
Yeah, and you can get caught up a lot in win-loss records and stuff. And how many teams have you seen in recent years that have only dropped a 1 or 2 game throughout the season and then bombed in finals or got blown out of the water in a grand final? It all comes down to when you can step up and do in the finals. And tell you what, if you got Gary Hocking as your coach, you wouldn't want to be putting a foot wrong playing for him, would you? He was a hard bastard back in the day.
So then moving into 4th, and this was actually a thrilling grand final contest in this one. The Ballarat League, Darley finished the premiers, led by ex-AFL Brett Bewley. Darley won its first premiership in 6 years, just 2 seasons after finishing dead last. The team lost 2 games all season, had the best attack in the competition. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, I'm pretty sure Darley kicked 2 goals in the space of about 2 minutes, including one pretty much on the siren to actually win this grand final.
Yeah, all right. And so the Raiders had them at 38, so a bit, fair gap there. But I think you say their first premiership in 6 years after finishing
bottom
dead last 2 seasons. So in 6 years, they've gone from winning a flag, going down to the bottom of the ladder, then back up and winning another flag, all in the space of 6 years. So what a freaking roller coaster for them.
That's very impressive, that one. So now moving into 3rd from the Gippsland League, and this one I can certainly understand why they're this high. The Leongatha Parrots. The dynasty continues to grow for the Parrots. The Parrots have now won 4 of the last 5 premierships and were on track to win the 2021 premiership before COVID ended the season. So is that saying that they've won 4? So I'm taking that as they've won 4 of the 5, but if 2021 had been there, it would have been 5 of 6, they're trying to say. That's how I'm reading it.
Yeah, I can only guess. The Raiders had them at ranked 5th, so pretty close to where they're ranked here. But
yeah, I'll tell you what, they're only going to
4 out of 5. You're going all right.
I reckon they're only going to get stronger in 12 to 24 months because Leongatha is actually Dyson Heppel's home club, and Aaron plays there. So I reckon once Dyson hang the boots up, I would not be surprised if he ventures down there for a season or 2 at Leongatha, and that's just going to strengthen him even more.
Yeah, that'd be quite the get for them, and you'd say Dyson's probably only. I know you got the Bombers hat on, but he's probably only got a year left.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's probably only got 1 or 2 years left. And that's what I'm saying.
He does speak very fondly of Leongatha and country footy and stuff. So you'd love to see him go down there and play with his family, his brother or whatever. But he seems like the type of bloke that would.
Yeah, he does. That's why I reckon he probably will end up down there. So in the second. From the Goulburn Valley, Echuca. I think pretty sure I watched this grand final. This was the grand final I wanted to watch, and this is where Clutch ruined me. So the premiers were Echuca. One of one of only a handful of country clubs to win back-to-back flags this season. Echuca dominated the Goulburn Valley League, losing 2 games all year. They've won 39 of their past 41 matches.
So 2 games, and they lost those 2 games this year. So they've only lost 2 games out of the last
3
seasons, pretty much. Well, you take COVID.
Well, you know what? You could probably add an extra. If you didn't want to say seasons, you could probably add an extra year to that because there's no games in COVID. So 2021 as well, 2022. So you can almost go 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and the Readers had them ranked at 9, so pretty close to that. Echuca's always been known as a pretty decent footy club up there, and always done pretty well.
So then moving on to number 1, and there's no surprise on this one, to be honest with you, because this club has been just a powerhouse of local footy for years, and that's Yarrawonga in the Ovens and Murray. Won the flag. Steve Johnson enjoyed the perfect first season in charge of the Pigeons, guiding them to a premiership. They dropped just 2 games for the season.
Yeah, the Readers had them ranked 50, which it probably just shows that they're not a very liked team compared to others. Where they're hard to deny that they've been up there and been as good as they have for a long time.
And Ovens and Murray would be top 5 leagues in the state, if not higher than 5.
And if you're getting Steve Johnson to go down and coach you, and you've had Favola down there playing for a few years and stuff, you're doing something right to be able to attract those ilk of players going down to your club, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So that's the top 10s for the Metro and Melbourne and Country footy leagues there. I look forward to seeing maybe at the end of this season we'll compare the top 10 from where they were this year and where they finish next year. I'm going to assume that most of those clubs will probably be back into sort of the same areas they were. We'll move on now. So speaking of a club, was it 39 from 41 games or something like that they'd won? We'll move on to the longest winning streaks and the longest losing streaks in local footy at the moment. What do you want to start with? You want to start with the longest winning streaks or the longest losing streaks?
Oh, let's get the losers out of the way.
We'll start from. We'll just quickly run through there. So we'll start from the bottom with 19 games. Who we got? 19, mate.
19. We've got. So thanks. Throw me under the bus with this name. St. Arnaud in the North Central. The Saints struggled all year, conceding more than 100 points a game. They lost all their 16 games this season, so their losses are tracking back to last season as well. So
then you got Campbell Creek in the Maryborough Castlemaine, 20 games. They unfortunately had almost conceded 200 points a game and under 20 points in 12 games. Whittlesea in the Northern, 20 games. Old Collegians in the Warrnambool, 21 games. Apollo Bay in the Colwack League, 21 games. Melton South, 21 games. Clayton, 22 games.
Clayton, Southern team, I was surprised to see. I didn't realise they were on such a losing streak.
We'll move up a little bit now. We're going to get to the big ones. So, Rumbola in the Murray, 37 games without a win. North Sunshine in the Western Region, 37 games. That's a hell of a lot, that. Wagani in the Tallangatta, 39 games. They haven't won a game since June 19, 2021. Neilma Durham in the Allenbank, so close to where we are, 39 games. Their last win came on June 26th. They were probably hoping that they might have been able to get the win when they had Nathan Buckley come to play for them against Katani, but unfortunately Buckley went down pretty early.
Pinged his hammy, didn't he? It's the first few minutes.
Laylaw in the Northern League, 42 games. Maryborough in the Bendigo League, 46 games. Port Arlington in the Ballerine, and we'll get on to the Ballerine League in the next episode or two with the discussions about the restructuring of the leagues out that way. Then one we spoke about in the first episode a couple of weeks ago, the Western Rams in the Riddle District, 69 games. It's a lot of games to be losing.
Yeah, and their last win was against Broadford, who have since moved to the Outer East, and that was in 2018. They won by 41 points.
It's disappointing, but resilience to all those clubs and communities for sticking fat and keeping, they hurt. I've been part of clubs that have been on the end of a lot of long losing streaks, but also maybe not massive streaks, but massive beltings in footy, and it becomes harder and harder each week to have your players turn up and keep going. So hopefully by the end of this season, all those clubs we can see there will be, their losing streaks will be back under double digits because they've picked up a game early in the season.
Yeah, good luck to Western Rams, especially 69 games.
I tell you the other thing. Any of those teams, probably from about the 22 game onwards, or maybe even we'll go from probably 22 games onwards. Tell you what, the night they win a game, those rooms are gonna be pumping like they just won a granny.
Oh, for sure. Like you said, we've been a part of a club that took some beltings, and we had a couple tough years. And the one game we did win, it just happened to be on the night we had a function booked in, and you would have thought we won a granny, and we'd only just scraped over the line, and our first win for the year at the time.
So we're going to move on to the top, the wing streaks, and there's a big gap here between the longest losing streak and the longest winning streak, which just goes to show you how hard it is to actually keep on winning. So run us through them, mate.
Yeah, so at the bottom of a 13-game win streak, Lancaster in the Kyabram districts, Banville in the Millawa, 13.
Kunjiwa.
Yeah, and Upper Murray, 14. Bonnie Doon, 16 games. Donvale, 17 games. Golden Square, we just mentioned in the top 50.
So this is what I'm talking about, how it's hard. So they're like maybe got the 8th highest, longest record, and it's fallen in one season. So they've literally got 17 games undefeated, but they lost in round 4, 2023. Just goes to show you how hard it is to win bulk loads of games in consecutive games.
That's the thing. Like these, you're talking longest winning streaks, and the few bottom sides in this haven't even gone undefeated for a season. You then start getting up to Sea Lake, Nandley, and North Central. They won 18 games, but again, that might not be. If they played a 16-game season and 2 finals, maybe they did go undefeated. Harrow, Balmoral, and Horsham District, 18 games. Had a whopping percentage of 454%. So that's some big wins. Terrelgan Tyres United, 18 games. St. Bernard's, 19 wins and a forfeit. In the VAFA, North Brunswick in the VAFA, 19 wins and a draw. That kind of bumps you out the list. I think you've had half a loss.
Well, it's still undefeated, mate. Well, actually, you know what? If you're working off longest winning streaks, that's not a winning streak.
Yeah,
that's an undefeated streak, but it's not a winning streak.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's a little caveat there. Keilor in the Essendon District, there on 20 games. Finished the game premiers, champions after winning the Premier Division flag.
So again, 20 games. That's because they went undefeated this season. They lost the 2022 grand final to Strathmore. They didn't make the grand final last year. In 2022. So then, again, one season's all it's taken for them to finish 3rd highest winning streaks.
Yeah, and then the top 2 winning streaks, you got Harcourt in the Maryborough Castlemaine on 27 games, and Marong in the Loddon Valley.
Loddon Valley, yeah.
Loddon Valley, 32 games. The best unbeaten streak local footy after Leongatha lost the title earlier this year. So they've won, 2 straight premierships and, haven't dropped a game for 32. So not even still 2 full seasons, though, really.
It would be...
They probably lost one early last season.
Yeah, because it'd be like you're working off, say, average of 20 games a season. If you're making finals, that's 40. So it just goes to show that winning games of footy is not an easy feat. I think pretty sure Leongatha got to about 37 or 38 before they finally dropped a game this year. I remember actually it was the club that bet Leongatha, again, treated it like they just won a flag because they just knocked off one of the most dominant teams in local footy. And so we don't have anything. We got anything else, mate, you want to touch on before we wrap this one up?
I was just going to say, we've got some local footy to watch and community TV. You can jump on and watch some of the Northern Territory footy up there. I think there's some pretty decent talent going around up there that I'll be checking out over the next couple of weekends.
Yeah, I think round 1 I sort of sat myself down and watched a bit of that, and such good quality footy. And the thing about the Northern Territory League, it's a state competition, but you have so many blokes that play, locally in Melbourne for their local club, flying up there and playing, and it's actually a good competition. And tell you what, the weather up there to be playing it would be, it'd be hot up there right about now.
Yeah, to be testing conditions, that's for sure. It's a very different environment, especially for like you said, guys flying up there to play. It'd be a bit of a shock to the system your first couple of games compared to the local fellas.
Yeah, we'll touch on just one more thing actually. So this was an article back from December written by David Johnston again, and it's just sort of touching on sort of like a footy. The fact that there's going to be no AFL practice matches in regional Victoria for a second year in a row. So regional Victoria and New South Wales councils that have poured millions of dollars into upgrading sporting venues to host AFL practice matches have missed out on the game for the second successive year. With fewer pre-season matches being played than a decade ago, all Victorian games in next year's community series will be played at city venues or Geelong. The last time AFL practice matches were played in regional areas was 2022 with fears they won't return. That year, Lavington Sports Ground hosted Sydney and Greater Western Sydney, with the match being the first elite sporting fixture at the venue following a $19.6 million redevelopment. Morwell Recreation Reserve hosted Geelong, Collingwood and Hawthorn in the same year, and it followed a $9 million upgrade. Warrnambool's Reed Oval has hosted AFLW matches for the last 2 years after $10.7 million was spent bringing it up to standard of capable of staging elite sport. Albury Council owns Lavington Sports Ground, and Mayor Kylie King said it was disappointing that the regions have missed out. Grassroots footy fans on the border and northeast have always embraced the opportunity to see their idols play closer to home during AFL Community Series, she said. I think it's a missed opportunity, and just goes on to mention the disappointment. Now, before I throw to you, mate, the community grounds games, to me, the AFL should be really finding a way to keep them out there. So probably over a decade ago now, we used to have a holiday house up in Bonnie Doon. My cousin used to live in Wangaratta, and Essendon actually played Richmond in Wangaratta. So I'm obviously Essendon. My cousin went for Richmond. So we actually went Bonnie Doon that weekend, went into Wangaratta to watch the footy, and the amount of people at that ground to watch it was just incredible. The income that both the club that hosted the ground or the council would have made would have been amazing. And even the games, I've been to 1 or 2 games at Casey Fields, and that joint packs up like there's no tomorrow. So the fact that they're sort of taking that away from local councils, considering that the AFL love to bang on about how much they spend on the community councils, and they pump up these community camps that the AFL clubs do, which is fantastic. But when you're not even given the proper product to these councils and communities that have spent millions of dollars to get you there, it's a kick in the teeth to local communities and local footy clubs.
Yeah, and it comes off the back of a pretty big disappointment in the Com Games getting cancelled. That was supposed to be a pretty big thing for regional areas, and then you can't even get any footy out there. That it's disappointing for those regional communities, but they struggle to get out to games as it is. If you're a fan of,
if you're traveling 5 hours, you're not going to do a 10-hour round trip, are you?
Nah, and that's the thing. You want everyone getting to see footy. You want everyone to be able to enjoy it, and you're only going to bring more supporters to the clubs. Hopefully some clubs, like I said, still get out there and do some training out in these regional areas, even, put on scratch matches and open training sessions at least at the very minimum.
Well, they've got to do, every club has to do at least a week in a community local area. So they do that. I think Collingwood went to the Gippsland area and they actually got behind Fish Creek, whose change rooms actually burnt down back in the last season, which I had sort of on the run sheet to discuss, but I also felt like maybe too much time's now passed to really, unfortunately, bring that up and touch on that, because it's something they probably don't really want to relive, and it might be something that we might bring up once the rebuild's almost done and they're back playing footy. But yeah, I think it's one thing that sort of it shits me about the AFL is how often they bang on about local footy and the community. We love the supporters and family, but whenever push comes to shove for the AFL to actually support grassroots footy in any which way, they seem to all of a sudden shit the bed and not want to do it.
Yeah, and I think it's probably things like gather round and now they've opening round where they've added this extra thing is probably part of the reason why these things aren't happening, is because it takes a fair chunk of their budget and stuff is going into putting on these gather rounds where they're all at the same venue. But how much better would gather round be, or a round of the likes be, if they played across the country at different community venues? And who gives a shit if you can't fit in 30, 40,000 people? If you got to have 5,000 people standing around a community ground watching their favourite teams play, the atmosphere would be unreal. And the enjoyment you would bring to these communities, or everything would be just benefit for all these local communities, and you get everyone back enjoying footy and trying to, when we're talking about leagues that are struggling to get teams up and, teams dropping off, having AFL quality footy go out to these areas and help promote the game even more would only just help those leagues out.
Yeah, it's disappointing, and as I said, it just sort of feels like every time AFL say they're going to do something to help the grassroots level out, they don't. But anyway, we'll probably wrap that one up there, mate. Just before we go, just touching on what I touched on the other week. So we are from Halfback Digital Media. So we're built for local community sport. We offer services, game filming, live streaming, game week social media content, podcast production, media days, drone filming. With a lot of practice matches now booked in, we're currently offering a flat rate fee of $275 to get your practice matches filmed. So that's more importantly, mate, that's in our 4K quality and delivered to your club within 24 hours. We've also restructured our pricing this year. So no matter where you are in Victoria, you have a flat rate of $300 for your game filming. And we're currently still in the midst of working with some advertising partners to be able to offer clubs live streaming with no additional cost on top of the game filming. So hopefully we can bring the game to more to people inside the community that can't get to the games, or people that currently live abroad. We've done that last year with Hawthorn Vaffa Grand Final. We live streamed their Grand Final for them due to the fact that a lot of people in the state, and that was an absolute hit with them, even though the game didn't go the way they wanted. So if you want any information on what Halfback Digital Media can do for your club, shoot us a direct message via on Instagram or Facebook at halfbackdigitalmedia.com, or send us an email, info@halfbackdigitalmedia.com. Did I just stuff up the social media one?
I'm not too sure.
Anyway,
Halfback Media.
Yeah, I think I said at halfbackdigitalmedia.com, just running into the info. But anyway, and also if you have a business that you feel like would be a good advertising partner for us, get in contact with us. again via DM or at the email address I just provided. You'll get advertisement on this podcast platform, on our social medias, every game that goes out to our clubs that we film for during the season, and our live stream. You'll get prominent promotion on there. So that's it, mate. We'll join you next week for another episode of Talking Grassroots.
No worries. See you soon.